Are you looking to build soil that's so healthy that it grows like this? Stick with me and I'll show you what we've done in this planting space as we enter its now second season. If you're looking to develop healthy soil and develop your planting spaces, there's a couple of things that you can do. Let me show you what I've done in this no-till bed that's going on its second season now. This space is 16 feet by 25 feet, giving me 400 square feet of planting space. And last year I planted corn and sunflower in here and I had a pretty good yield for its first year. I was very pleased with the results. And so this fall, I wound up broad forking this entire space after the harvest, and I amended this with approximately 2.5 yards of compost that we've natively produced here. And I seeded it with a 10 seed cover crop mix. So what I have planted in this space is Austrian winter pea, winter wheat, triticale, hairy vetch, fenugreek, forage collards. There's some yellow mustard in there, berseem clover, daikon radish, and crimson clover. This planting space is an area that's been isolated not only from birds, but from other animals that may want to come in and browse. So it's got an entire net over the top of it, which eliminates the house sparrows from coming in and really getting after the young, tender shoots of whatever it is that I'm trying to grow before it can get established. It's typically not a problem once it's to this stage, but when it's just coming up and it's tender, the house sparrows in the area love to come in and they will just decimate a space like this. Ideally, you would plant enough for all of the wildlife to be able to enjoy, but when you have a space that's not as large as, maybe you would like, I need to do everything that I can in order to ensure that I have as much success as possible. A couple of the very important ways that one can go about building their soil is to attack it from a couple of different angles. And really what you're trying to do is you're trying to replicate what nature is actually trying to do. Nature doesn't like bare soil. Nature wants the soil covered. You can either do that by planting something, as we've done here, or you can bring something in like a mulch, either in the form of leaves or wood chips or straw. Essentially what you're trying to do is just to make sure that the soil stays covered. You're trying to replicate what nature is trying to accomplish. What that does is it provides protection from the sun, the wind, the rain, the erosion. It helps to retain moisture. It helps in temperature control. One of the best things you can do to encourage the development of the soil food web is to maintain a living root in the soil at all times. The soil food web, which is what actually grows your plants, you're trying to make that soil food web happy enough to stay around and multiply. You want to grow that soil food web so that it's going to be able to interact symbiotically with your plants. Because what your plants wind up doing is they wind up sending out signals in the form of exudates. They exude from their roots sugars and proteins and carbohydrates. What happens is, let's say this plant decides, hey, I'm deficient in magnesium or boron, for example. It will send out root exudates hoping to attract microbiology that has consumed that mineral, because the mineral in most cases is already in the soil. It's just not bioavailable to the plant. The plant is sending out that signal, again, hoping to attract those specific microbes. When those specific microbes feed on that sugar or that carbohydrate or that protein from this plant, it will consume it and then it will excrete it out. And then the plant itself will draw that excretion and it will get the boron, the magnesium. It becomes bioavailable through the passage of that microbe. So really that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to attack it from a couple of different angles, not only from the top, but from the bottom, probably more importantly, those two angles. The other way that we can build soil is to try to increase the fertility by bringing in compostable material. It's an attempt to replicate kind of what's happening in nature. You have a lot of organic material that falls to the earth and then it decomposes. We're doing that in kind of an accelerated fashion with compost. Some of what I've planted in here are legumes. Legumes have the ability to take atmospheric nitrogen and fix it into the plant itself and the nitrogen nodules that will form on the root structure. The real benefit to the soil is going to be those nitrogen nodules that are left within this soil once these plants are cut back. Those particular nitrogen fixing plants will be high in nitrogen themselves, and they will be taken over and taken in the compost yard, and that compost will directly benefit from that increase in nitrogen. This will wind up being fodder for my chickens, and what they don't eat will wind up decomposing in the form of compost. It will be mixed with other carbonaceous material, and it will decompose in the yard, and then it will just continually be brought back into the system. I don't know if it's going to specifically be brought back into this space here, but it will be used on this property. I'm going to go ahead and cover this with pallet sheets and then allow this to die back, allow all the root structure that is here to die back in place. That will allow the soil life that's underneath the pallet sheets to have a heyday. All the worms and all of the things that you can and mostly can't see are going to have a heyday with all that root structure. And then when I peel this back a month later from that, or maybe longer, I'll be able to broad fork this, decompact it. I'm not going to till it. I'm going to go ahead and leave all that soil structure in place, but I'm going to decompact it. And then I'll choose at some point something to plant in here. I haven't yet determined what that's going to be, but I'm excited about the progress that this has made in a very short period of time. But essentially what a pallet sheet is it's merely just heavy cardboard cut out in the size of a pallet. And it's designed to protect material that's on top of it that could be impacted by a stray nail or a screw or a staple that's left in recycled pallets. So it protects the seed, it protects the livestock feed and things like that. And so I get as many of these as I want, and I find myself using them for all sorts of things on the property. What I really find them to be very valuable and useful for is sheet mulching. Nice thing about it is this is completely clean. There's no tape on it. You don't have to break down any boxes, and it covers a large area in a very short time. Yeah, the way these teeth are is they're like kind of like a shark's tooth. You can run your hand this way very, very well, but they're angled backwards, so this grabs quite a bit. And this thing's retained its sharpness for, it's still very, very sharp. And I use this thing all the time. I've had it for about 1.5 years. So, pretty cool tool. This entire space is going to have this treatment in about 3 weeks' time. I'll go ahead and wet this down and put a little bit of compost over the top of it. I'll give this a good soaking and allow it to break down from this point forward. And what you'll find when this gets pulled back at planting time is there will be a tremendous amount of activity underneath this. I look forward to being able to show you more along the way as this develops over time. If you want to see more of this type of soil building content, check out some of these videos in our chicken compost playlist. Please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.